Welcome to APush for 5, your shortcut to mastering the AP U.S. history exam. Let's jump into Period 4, 1800 to 1848, where America transformed through democracy, reform, and growth. Question 1. Stimulus. Seneca Falls Convention poster, 1848. A convention to discuss the social, civil, and religious condition and rights of women. Question. The organization of the Seneca Falls Convention most directly demonstrates which broader transformation in American reform movements? A. The fragmentation of the abolitionist movement into racial and class factions over strategies for emancipation. B. The adaptation of abolitionist organizing techniques and ideological frameworks to a newly articulated women's rights agenda. C. The influence of evangelical revivalism in subordinating women's political activity to domestic and moral reform concerns. D. The alliance of female reformers with Whig industrialists in support of protective tariffs and education reform. The correct answer is B. The adaptation of abolitionist organizing techniques and ideological frameworks to a newly articulated women's rights agenda. The women who organized Seneca Falls adapted abolitionist conventions and rhetoric to launch a campaign for gender equality. They linked women's rights to the same universal moral principles that underpinned anti-slavery activism. Question 2. Stimulus. Sea painting. Question. The ideology portrayed in this image most closely aligns with which 1840s concept? A. The Southern defense of states' rights and nullification as a means to preserve slavery against federal interference. B. The doctrine of manifest destiny, which fused nationalism, racial hierarchy, and divine providence to justify continental expansion. C. The transcendentalist vision of moral self-culture and harmony with nature as a spiritual reaction against material expansion. D. The sectional compromise over slavery's expansion that temporarily maintained political balance between free and slave states. The correct answer is B. The doctrine of manifest destiny, which fused nationalism, racial hierarchy, and divine providence to justify continental expansion. Manifest destiny justified expansion as divinely ordained, linking technological progress and racial hierarchy to territorial conquest. It fused nationalism and providential mission to sanction continental growth. Question 3. Stimulus. Treaty excerpt, Adams' Honest Treaty, 1819. Question. This diplomatic agreement most directly exemplifies which early U.S. foreign policy trend? A. The assertion of hemispheric independence from Europe embodied in the Monroe Doctrine's warning against further colonization. B. The pursuit of overseas colonies and extraterritorial influence as precursors to later imperial ambitions. C. The adoption of mercantilist trade restrictions designed to protect U.S. commerce from British dominance. D. The expansion of U.S. territory through negotiation rather than war. The correct answer is D. The expansion of U.S. territory through negotiation rather than war. The Adams' Honest Treaty secured Florida by diplomacy, signaling confidence in negotiated expansion early in the 19th century. It reflected an assertive yet non-belligerent approach to territorial growth. Question 4. Stimulus. See map. The Oregon Trail, 1840s. Question. Migration along the Oregon Trail most directly reflects which social or economic motivation? A. The communal migration of religious utopian groups seeking refuge from persecution in the East. B. The relocation of anti-slavery activists escaping Southern hostility following the gag rule debates in Congress. C. The pursuit of inexpensive farmland and economic renewal after financial crises such as the Panic of 1837. D. The industrial relocation of manufacturing enterprises seeking to exploit Western resources and labor. The correct answer is C. The pursuit of inexpensive farmland and economic renewal after financial crises, such as the Panic of 1837. The westward movement along the Oregon Trail reflected Americans' search for land and stability after the economic dislocation of the 1830s. Migrants were motivated by opportunity and self-reliance, not by organized industrial or political causes, embodying the expansionist optimism of the antebellum period. Question 5. Stimulus, Indian Removal Act, 1830. Congressional debate excerpt. Question. Which justification did supporters of Indian removal most often employ? A. The paternalistic belief that relocation would shield Native Americans from extinction caused by encroaching white settlement. B. The assertion that Native sovereignty was protected under early Supreme Court rulings affirming tribal independence. C. The conviction that westward expansion was divinely sanctioned and inevitable under the nation's manifest destiny. D. The argument that Native populations could assimilate fully into white society if granted citizenship and property rights. The correct answer is C. The conviction that westward expansion was divinely sanctioned and inevitable under the nation's manifest destiny. Supporters portrayed removal as both benevolent and inevitable, using manifest destiny and civilization rhetoric to justify displacing Native peoples. Question 6. Stimulus, Trail of Tears, 1838. Illustration. Question. The forced displacement shown most directly resulted from which political dynamic? A. Executive defiance of Supreme Court rulings. B. Judicial enforcement of Cherokee sovereignty. C. The failure of British diplomacy in the West. D. The influence of abolitionists on Western policy. The correct answer is A. Executive defiance of Supreme Court rulings. Jackson effectively ignored Worcester versus Georgia, using executive power to carry out removal despite the court's position. The episode highlighted conflict between branches and the limits of legal protection. Question 7. Stimulus. Monroe Doctrine, 1823. Presidential message to Congress. Question. The Monroe Doctrine primarily reflected which U.S. objective? A. The prevention of further European intervention in the Americas while affirming U.S. neutrality in existing colonial conflicts. B. The defense of Southern interests by opposing British emancipation efforts in the Caribbean colonies. C. The pursuit of commercial supremacy through naval expansion into the Pacific and Asian markets. D. The formation of military alliances with newly independent Latin American nations to deter European powers. The correct answer is A. The prevention of further European intervention in the Americas while affirming U.S. neutrality in existing colonial conflicts. The Monroe Doctrine declared the Western Hemisphere closed to new European colonization, asserting U.S. influence without direct alliances or intervention. It reflected early American diplomatic confidence rooted in neutrality and hemispheric independence. Question 8. Stimulus. Map. U.S. expansion, 1803 to 1848. Question. The territorial acquisitions shown most directly intensified which political debate? A. The legitimacy of executive expansionism following Jefferson's Louisiana Purchase and Polk's Mexican War policies. B. The constitutionality of internal improvements funded by federal tariffs and land sales. C. The expansion of slavery into newly acquired Western territories and its implications for sectional balance. D. The role of moral reform movements in shaping democratic participation and social progress. The correct answer is C. The expansion of slavery into newly acquired Western territories and its implications for sectional balance. Territorial growth from 1803 to 1848 repeatedly reignited disputes over slavery's expansion, from the Missouri Compromise to the Wilmot Proviso. Expansion magnified sectional tensions and linked geography to the politics of bondage and free labor. Question 9. Stimulus. Lewis and Clark Expedition Journal, 1804 to 1806. Question. The expedition most directly advanced. Which federal policy goal? A. Establishing diplomatic and commercial ties with Western native nations to extend U.S. influence. B. Securing territorial claims against competing European powers in the Trans-Mississippi West. C. Promoting domestic manufacturing as a foundation for economic self-sufficiency. D. Mapping and cataloging the resources of newly acquired lands to facilitate expansion and economic integration. The correct answer is D. Mapping and cataloging the resources of newly acquired lands to facilitate expansion and economic integration. Lewis and Clark delivered geographic and scientific data that supported commercial integration and settlement. Their work underwrote federal ambitions for Western development. Question 10. Stimulus. Texas annexation debates, 1845. Congressional and public arguments. Question. Opponents of Texas annexation most frequently cited. Which concern? A. The economic cost of war with Mexico. B. The moral implications of expanding slavery. C. The rise of Northern industrial dominance. D. The loss of federal revenue from tariffs. The correct answer is B. The moral implications of expanding slavery. Northern Whigs and many anti-slavery advocates emphasized slavery's expansion and the destabilization of the sectional balance. Annexation entwined expansionism with the moral geography of freedom and bondage. Thanks for watching APush for 5. Let us know in the comments which questions you like the most. If today's practice helped you, tap like, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any future videos. And share this with a friend who's also aiming for that 5. If you want more hands-on learning or direct feedback, reach out directly. We'd love to help you take your prep to the next level. See you in the next video.